Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Newsweek article. Letitia James could face jail time over fraud allegations. You will hear in a couple of seconds the legal analysis. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. I'll give you about 30 seconds before you hear the legal analysis of what's going on. Number one, the Attorney General Letitia James went after President Trump for allegedly inflating his net worth. That is completely absurd. He's a billionaire. Won the popular vote in his second term. He was a president, a former president, when she went after him, part of Americana and American history. His Mar-a-Lago residence was worth $1 to $1.5 billion. The judge in the case, or the court, stated it was only worth $17 million. That's just one of many absurd peculiarities of that case. I talked about that in a segment prior to this one. Please go ahead and watch that and hit subscribe if you're new. Number two, there was never any attempt by President Trump of deceiving any bank. President Trump will get the New York Appeals Court to rule in his favor and throw out the $450 million judgment against him. I talked about that in the segment prior to this one. Again, please check it out. President Trump not only had Deutsche Bank defending him during the trial. Trump could go to any bank in the world, any major bank in the world, and get $1 billion loan tomorrow. The issue with Letitia James is that, according to the Department of Justice criminal referral, she actually did engage in criminal conduct. The big issue, number three, is that she did not live in her primary residence is obviously supposed to be in New York as Attorney General. She stated that her primary residence was in Virginia. Can't be Attorney General of New York if your primary residence is in Virginia, if that's the case. Furthermore, she falsified documents in other ways, according to the allegations. A resignation is almost certain. An arrest, an indictment, at least an indictment, is almost certain. Let's check this out, ladies and gentlemen.
This is that. The Ingram angle obtaining documents from the Federal Housing Finance Agency accusing James of, quote, falsifying records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. Now, here is what she's accused of doing. One, listing a home in Virginia as her primary residence in 2023 while serving as New York's top prosecutor. Two, James reportedly also listed her father as her husband on mortgage applications. And three, the Federal Housing Finance Agency says she bought a 5-family home in Brooklyn, but misrepresented the same property as only having 4 units in building permit applications and numerous documents. Now,
so the issue is a potential desire to lower her tax burden. You're going to pay less in insurance in Virginia. Property tax, you'll pay less in Virginia. And then, of course, if you don't list the exact number of units in a property in New York, you'll pay less in terms of property tax. Let's continue.
This, of course, is a role reversal of sorts for James. In 2022, she won a $454 million civil fraud judgment against President Trump and the Trump Organization, stating he falsified business records and misrepresented his net worth. That case currently on appeal. James frequently sat in the courtroom throughout those proceedings. No love lost between the two, as you can see in some of these pictures. President Trump reacting to the new accusations against her, writing on Truth Social. Letitia James, a totally corrupt politician, should resign from her position as New York State Attorney General immediately. Everyone is trying to make New York great again, and it can never be done with this wacky crook in office. Fox News contributor and law professor Jonathan Turley also weighing in. Watch.
The irony is perfectly crushing. This is a person who prosecuted Trump for everything short of ripping a label off a mattress. As for James, if we apply the Letitia James standard that she created, there'd be little question here. This seems pretty straightforward.
Letitia James has not responded to our request for comment.
there's the issue also of intent. President Trump never needed to lie or inflate his net worth. The notion that he ever did is completely absurd. He was a billionaire, a former president, part of American history. Again, he can go to any, whether you like him or dislike him, President Trump is like a dream come true to any bank or any lender in the world. Okay. One thing he knows how to do is make money, but also Mar-a-Lago alone is worth 1 to 1.5 billion. That's just one of a great number of properties he has around the world. He could use as collateral. I mean, he has conquered everything from Hollywood to real estate. So, of course, a bank wants to lend to billionaires, to a person who's a billionaire who was a president, a two-term president. Obviously, banks want to lend money when they know they'll be reimbursed with interest. Right now, the question, ladies and gentlemen, is would a bank lend to Letitia James? Even, let's say there's no indictment, just with the question mark of what's taking place in the public record. Now, let's say there's almost certainly there will be a resignation, possibly arrest, almost certainly an indictment, almost certainly a prosecution and a conviction, because it's not difficult to prove. The intent was to lower a tax burden. That's just one possible reasons why this took place. But also the issue of potentially putting a family member that is definitely not her husband as her husband. That possibly could be a huge, point where a huge, obvious potential fraud that there's no defense for.
Among the charges that were brought in New York, in not just the civil but the criminal case, was making false or misleading statements to financial institutions. And one of these sections, Section 1014 of the federal code, is prosecuted. It took me about 60 seconds of a search to find cases that the Department of Justice brought against people who falsely claimed that property was their principal residence in order to get loans. So this is well-tread areas for the Justice Department. As for James, if we apply the Letitia James standard that she created, there'd be little question here. This seems pretty straightforward. What the administration is saying is this was not her principal residence. In fact, as a New York elected official, she had to say that her principal residence was in New York. This was an out-of-state residence.
So that alone will force the resignation. This is not difficult to prove. The residence was in Virginia. The primary residence was in Virginia, allegedly, as she was New York Attorney General. There were family members put on the loan application, apparently, that are potentially not her husband, or obviously not her husband. And then there's the issue of property in New York that she lied about in terms of the number of units, which, by the way, she accused Trump of doing the same type of thing. Again, President Trump is literally a billionaire who's literally part of a world in American history. I think a bank will have no problem, would have no problem lending. The fact that they accused Trump of deceiving a bank, while the Attorney General going after him for deceiving a bank actually potentially deceived lenders and banks, is the epitome of the wonderful, highly educated, morally superior Democratic Party. But let's continue.
She's claimed these Virginia houses, at least one of them, as her primary residence when she's the Attorney General. In fact, some of that paperwork was filed when she was about to bring the case against Donald Trump. So that took real chutzpah. So the other thing, though, and I think this is real trouble, is that her Brooklyn residence, she has a residence in Brooklyn, that she has repeatedly claimed over the course of the ownership that it's only 4 residences. Why? 5 or above is commercial, and that's going to be a higher rate. And so she's always claimed through a series of papers.
So the Newsweek article right here, Letitia James could face jail time over fraud allegations. seems to foreshadow indictment, arrest, indictment, resignation, jail time, resignation, and then potential jail time. Hit subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll be back in a couple of hours.